You, I used the wrong overlay. What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and I'm joined per usual with my guy Brandon. What is going on, my brother?
How's
It's
it
Philly
going?
Philly the podcast, y'all. It is Philly Philly the podcast, and yes, today we should be having Zach Berman joining us, pending any crazy news happening in the next 5 minutes. With my luck, that will happen. But shout out to everybody that's already in the chat, man. If you are new, be sure to hit that subscribe. If you are chilling, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to fuel this live and every live coming up, you can buy us a coffee, man. We appreciate it. Coffee. We run on coffee, man. But links are in the description, so definitely check out all the links. Shout out to Mr. Philly in the building, Sonic in the building. Good morning, Nina. Shout out to Mr. Philly. So how are you feeling, man? Before we get him in here, how are you feeling, Brandon? A lot has happened this week. Hopefully we'll get some answers today. But what's the overall feel of things right now?
I mean, I'm kind of excited. It's like a new chapter in Philly, right? We're most likely getting a new head coach this week, if not today. Like that's happening. It's gonna be a new era, new things we can talk about, new things that we can look forward to and kind of speculate throughout the offseason. What is it going to look like? Is it going to look like this? Is it going to look like that? And it's kind of exciting. And then obviously we'll continue to have those Wentz and Hurts debates because that's just going to be the case until one of the guys is either named the starter come the season or one of the guys is off the team. So it's going to be a lot coming up. And it's exciting, especially to be in a podcast and all that. But yeah, I think with everyone saying that Josh McDaniels is the guy, and maybe today we're gonna get him. I don't know, but I mean, I wouldn't be too mad about it, depending on who's coming with him.
Yeah, I think that's what we've talked about this a couple of times, man. It's like at this point we're more anxious to see what the staff around whoever our head coach is going to be, because we know we're not going to get a top flight, top tier. Bill Belichick isn't walking through those doors. So we know we're going to have to build a very good team of coaching, a good coaching staff. I'm sorry, I can't talk. But yeah, so let's get Zach in here. Everybody, shout out to everybody. Make sure to hit that like button. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll try and get to them. But yeah, let's get to it. How's it going, my man? How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey,
Definitely,
appreciate you joining.
Definitely. So it's been we'll get right into it. I know we're all kind of on some time constraint, especially with these Eagles. Anything can happen at any moment, I feel like. So let's just get right into it. So we obviously know there's been a lot of drama in Philadelphia right now. Mm-hmm. So can you just kind of give us an overview of what happened? I mean, I feel like a couple months ago as Eagles fans, we thought things were okay in the front office, and I feel like a lot has changed. Can you just kind of give us an overview of what happened with Doug and Howie and Jeffrey? And was this something that was, coming for a while or just a spur of the moment type thing?
Yeah, so the short answer is that they won 4 games. The quarterback played often it leads to change. The long answer, like most things, it's far more complicated than that. And I think it goes back probably to last year when the coaching changes were made. When Doug Peterson was set to bring back Mike Rowe, was set to bring back Carson Walsh, and I think you really need to focus on Mike Rowe in this discussion and the offensive coordinator job. And really, the organization wanted more improvement from the offense. So they reconfigured the coaching staff, but nothing changed as far as like the overall philosophy. It's still Doug Peterson's offense. It's still Doug Peterson calling plays, and the offense got worse. There's no way around it. And then when you have a quarterback who you literally gave a 4-year, $128 million contract extension to, before that extension even starts, he regresses one of the worst regressions you've seen from a quarterback perhaps ever. That's a problem. All right. And so I think you need to look at that. And you also need to look at just the series of roster decisions and events that occurred to get them from the Super Bowl to 4-11-1. So I don't think this is something that was in response. I've heard speculation this was about week 17. I've heard speculation. It's about a civic decision here or there. I think this is about the way the team has regressed specifically on offense and specifically at quarterback, and what they feel they need to do to fix it. And I think the disconnect, if you will, is that Doug Peterson believes in himself, believes in what has worked for him before. And from his perspective, I imagine he was the coach here for 5 years, was in the playoffs 3 times, won a Super Bowl. He should have say over who's on his staff, what direction the offense is going. And then I think from the organization's perspective, we all saw the offense last year, right? You can't just run it back and expect it to be different. You know, what's the concrete plan? So I think I think that was really the disconnect in the end.
I agree. I mean, you brought up a valid point of even bringing it back to the year before, where Doug was like, "Oh, these guys are coming back," and then within a couple of days, they were gone. They were fired, and the new staff had to come in. So right then and there, that kind of like puts the sketchiness out there. And then obviously everything that's transpired since then, it did seem like there might have been some kind of power struggle, and that Doug was kind of set in his mindset, like it's his way or the highway in a sense, and his offense just wasn't clicking. It just was not happening.
Yeah, that's the truth. And yeah, I mean, you hit on it a little bit, but I want to ask you, so moving forward, so we see what happened with the former staff, now I can say, and how that went wrong. Moving forward, what do you think Jeffrey and Howie are looking for? Is there a specific? I know Jeffrey in his press conference was kind of talking about he wants to prioritize offense, if you will. But what do you think he's looking for in a head coach? Because I think we're all kind of surprised that McDaniel seems to be the lead of the race right now. So what do you think is the overall want and desire from our front office?
Sure. So based on what Jeffrey said, it's the leadership ability. Based on my opinion, it's someone who can come in and fix the offense and fix Carson Wentz, right? And perhaps that happens. You have a defensive-minded coach who's a real dynamic offensive coordinator who has those ideas. I suppose you can't rule that out. But I think the big thing, and particularly when you're talking about Josh McDaniels, is what scheme are they bringing in? What background with the offense are they bringing in? How flexible are they? How innovative are they? Those are all things that, just from knowing Jeffrey Lurie and observing his history, those are things he'll be paying close attention to. So, all things being equal, my guess is it would lean towards someone with offense and would lean towards someone with a quarterback background. It doesn't mean it needs to be that way, but I think that's where it would lean toward.
Sounded a lot like Josh. Go ahead.
I wouldn't be mad about Josh McDaniels. I mean, the guy has had, if we're going to get somebody, at least he's had head coach experience, right? It might have not worked out the best, but I mean, him and Tim Tebow won a playoff game. So that in itself is good. And then he's worked with Brady and Belichick. And maybe Carson does need more of a hard-nosed coach rather than someone that's kind of passive aggressive and it's just like hey buddy, like maybe we need to work on this. Like maybe someone that's going to come in and say, no, this is how it's going to be run and everything like that. So hopefully McDaniels can be that guy, or whoever they choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad at McDaniels. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so as far as McDaniels, I mean, it's a complicated question. There's a few things you need to look at. First off, you mentioned the head coaching history. 2 years, it ended poorly, right? Fired in his second season. Now, he was 32, 33 years old. I think if the three of us thought about where we were 12 years ago, we probably made decisions or did things that we wish we were different. Like perspective, right. You gain perspective over time. That being said, what you really need to differentiate is are these things that he can learn and improve upon, or are they character traits that are concerning? And so that's number one. Number two, when you look at him from an offense perspective, there is no doubt that he is innovative, that he's creative. You just look at his history from having the two tight ends when it was Gronkowski and Hernandez to really the evolution of the slot position when he had Wes Welker in there. You've seen in recent years him adapt to his personnel. In terms of running the ball, he looks at his roster and he adapts to it. I have no doubt that he's a smart, creative coach. That being said, look at his record or not the offensive record with Tom Brady and the offensive record without Tom Brady. And then look at what Tom Brady's done with Josh McDaniels and then without Josh McDaniels. And I would say based on that overall body of work, Josh McDaniels needs Tom Brady an awful lot more than Tom Brady needs Josh McDaniels, right? Like Tom Brady was successful when Bill O'Brien was offensive coordinator. Tom Brady's in the NFC Championship game this weekend with Tampa Bay. When Tom Brady wasn't his quarterback, Josh McDaniels has not been to the playoffs, right? He did. Now he went 11-5, I believe, when Matt Castle was his quarterback, but 2 years in Denver didn't make the playoffs. This year with Cam Newton didn't make the playoffs. And it's obviously not just offense, but you really need to look hard. Is it him or is it the quarterback, right? Because there are a lot of coaches who are hired because of the system that they run, but when they don't have the guy who runs it, it doesn't translate. So I think you need to look at the character personality component of it based on the Denver experience, based on backing out in Indianapolis, and then really look hard at offensively what can he do that is truly going to fix this.
Definitely. And here in Philly, we got two good tight ends. We could bring that back. We could have a little throwback Thursday every Sunday, So, I want to stay on coaches for a second because, we're talking about Josh McDaniels, but I want to bring up, I know a fan favorite, and I know I would get, roasted in comments if I did not ask this. If Josh McDaniels is our head coach, is there a realistic possibility that Deuce Staley can still have the same capacity or some type of capacity in this organization, or is there a possibility he might just move on?
It's a great question, and I'm careful answering it because I don't want to speak for Deuce. I mean, from the outside looking in, right? If you've been in the same organization as a coach since 2012, I believe 2011, 2012, this would be second time interviewing for the head coaching job. He interviewed in 2016. He interviewed for this year. He interviewed for the offensive coordinator job in 2018. Didn't get it. They changed it to they gave him the assistant head coaching title, right? But if you are with an organization for that long and they interview you that many times and you're not hired for it, perhaps you need to go somewhere else to fully grow. Now, Deuce Staley's a very good coach, right? And absolutely has the respect of his players. His position groups have always performed well. From everything I understand, the command he has in front of the room, it works. It's respected. People like that. He knows how to motivate players. He has all these attributes that you might want in a coach, right? But he has a lot of value to the Eagles if he's willing to stay, if he's not the coach. But from a career perspective, I would say if you've struck out a few times, it might make sense to at least kind of diversify your experience elsewhere.
Yeah, it's just part of me as a fan wants to see like the guy that has been there forever come up, be the head coach, and obviously you want everything to work out perfect. But that's just not reality. That's just not how life works. And everything's just not dandelions and sunshines and everything like that. So I guess the big question mark is like, you're right. He's been there for a while. He's interviewed for the head coach position once. He interviewed for the offensive coordinator. Then he got the assistant head coach. And we don't really know what that entailed. Is it just a name that he got? And realistically, he's just really the running backs coach. So we don't know if he could be a leader among the whole team and understand like, all right, what are we going to do on this third down? Is this a third or fourth down? Are we going for it? Or are we kicking a field goal? Are we going for two here or are we not? So we saw how that played out for Anthony Lynn in Los Angeles or for the Chargers and how that worked out. So I feel like you can't kind of relate the two, but they're similar. They come from similar paths. They were both special teams people, then running backs coach, and then Anthony Lynn eventually got his chance. So it's just, I don't know. It's tough. I want to see Deuce be that head coach and be the face, but at the end of the day, I have to be realistic and take my fan hat off and try to see who's the best person for this job.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point there, but I think that let's say let's say Deuce fits in the category of the CEO coach, right? Like he's not the one calling the plays, but he's doing running the team. He's coaching the coaches. He's coaching the players. He's making the decisions on the sideline. Some of the best coaches in NFL history fit that criteria. Some of the best coaches in recent history. I mean, some of the best coaches in the NFL right now don't call their plays. I covered the Giants when Tom Coughlin was there. Tom Coughlin won 2 Super Bowls. He didn't call the plays. You see the success Mike Tomlin's had. He's that CEO coach. So much of that job, I think on the outside, too much attention is paid to the direct involvement in calling the plays, and not enough in what you are. You are the leader of the organization. You're the head coach. What you're doing is coaching the team. And I think Deuce Staley can do that well, frankly. I don't – now, as far as assistant head coach, he stood in front of the team. He's served in that capacity. But the challenge I think a coach with that description has when you're being hired for the time is, say you make a great idea with your staff. So you hire a terrific offensive coordinator. Now he leaves. Then what? Right? What's your plan thereafter? And I think there's a thought from the management perspective that if you hire someone who comes in with a scheme, with the philosophy as the play caller, you're at least going to have continuity there. You saw that with Andy Reid from 1999 to really 2012. Even when he wasn't calling plays, he was overseeing the offense. So I think that's kind of the difference between those two types of coaches.
Now moving forward, I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but with the whole situation with Carson and Jalen, I know we've seen reports saying, that they've been saying in meetings and stuff like that they want somebody that can work with Carson Wentz. How big of a factor are those 2 quarterbacks actually playing in the head coaching search?
It's a great question. I think that's when a lot of people are trying to figure out. I don't think the Eagles would categorically eliminate a coach that they like because he doesn't want to coach Carson Wentz. That being said, I think the best outcome for the Eagles from their perspective, and just from a practical perspective, is to fix Carson Wentz, right? You gave him that contract. You've made this organizational investment. Maybe there's a team out there that's willing to give up a first-round pick and you'll eat the $33 million and you'll move on. But I think what the Eagles would like is to find a way to make this work with Carson, right? So the best case scenario then is finding a coach who's willing to do that. Jalen Hurts, if he's not the starting quarterback, he's an awfully valuable back quarterback on an inexpensive salary. That being said, this game's not played on paper, and there's actual human dynamics that they need to account for, both in the quarterback room and in the locker room, right? I don't know if you can have a quarterback competition next year, for instance, in earnest. If you thought it was messy at the end of this year with Carson, just imagine what would happen if there's a quarterback competition, right? And then also, let's say Carson comes back and he's the unquestioned franchise quarterback. There's a lot of people in that locker room looking around saying, the head coach was just fired because of him, and he's back, and he's back and he doesn't have to compete. Like there are human dynamics they need to account for. Now, I don't think there are that many players in the locker room who really have like strong muscle in the organization anymore. There are a few older players. When you look at, I don't know if Jason Kelsey's going to be back, but you were Lane Johnson's, Brandon Brooks. I don't know if Zach Ertz is going to be back. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. Those guys are like core foundational players. But beyond that, you look at this roster, it's a lot of young guys and not guys you say are like foundational guys. So when they show up for their first meeting next year, if Carson's your quarterback, then Carson needs to be like the guy on the team because they really don't have a lot of others.
Yeah, I really feel like this is – I'm sorry, not to cut you
off.
No,
I was going to ask you a question. Go ahead.
I really feel like this is a 3 to 5 or 10-year decision possibly. Like I feel like if you go with Carson right now, you have to go with Carson for the future. You have to kind of put all your chips in that basket, so to speak, just because we have to build a team around him, whether that be on defense or offense, and we have to go forward with the mind frame that he's going to be our quarterback. We can't 5 games into the season next year, bench him and think he's going to still have the value that he may have right now. So I definitely agree with you. This is going to be a huge decision for our franchise. But go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I would just jump in real quick with that. The risk there is that you can excuse a 1-year blip. You can't excuse a 2-year blip, right? Like if he comes out next year and he looks like this, then you say this is who he is now. And then you just have to eat your losses, eat the money, not get value for him, and just look at it as a sunk cost.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question for you guys, because you just brought it up, is if you do, let's say Carson wins out the offseason, right? He wins out over the summer, but then the first couple of weeks go by and we still have Jalen on the team and he stinks. Like all of a sudden he's still standing there, fumbling the ball and everything like that. I guess is it a gamble to actually run with Carson rather than maybe during that small gap that we have in June to possibly trade him this season rather than next season if he was bad?
Yeah, look, the Carson Wentz decision here, in my opinion, is the toughest one this organization's faced in my 9 years covering the team. Because you're absolutely right, that's a risk. There's also the risk of trading him and him becoming the MVP player for the Colts or the Steelers or someone else. And then Jalen Hurts isn't the guy, and you're recycling, you're going into the draft next year and you're saying, are we taking Desmond Ridder? Are we taking Sam Howell? Are we taking, I'm trying to think of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft, Jaden Daniels. I'm like, just like, are you going in that direction? Because Jalen Hurts is just not a top level quarterback. Like there's a lot of risk in bringing Carson back and him looking like this. There's also a lot of risk in trading him, and you just traded away a franchise quarterback, because we've seen, I'll put it this way, what Carson did in 2017. I know people say you got to get off 2017. That was 4 years ago, right? But what the level that he reached as a quarterback then, there are a few people who have ever done that, right? Like that's rare. You move mountains in your organization to get that. And frankly, when the Eagles made the moves that they did in 2016 to get Carson, their rationalization was, well, if you get this right, this is a 10, 15-year decision, right? It's okay to trade picks for the next few years, because if you get it right, we are set. And I think they thought that. When they thought that in the contract, I don't think they ever envisioned being in this scenario now where they have this type of decision on their hands.
Yeah, I feel like this is an unprecedented situation. Not just, obviously, the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback is one thing. No team's ever obviously done that like that. But, to be in a situation where as fans, it's almost upsetting that you have two good quarterbacks is such a weird feeling. Because it's like, especially looking at the playoffs this year, you would expect as a fan, as a franchise, it's a beautiful thing to have two good quarterbacks. You never know what's going to happen. You never know when you're going to need someone to step in, especially in Philadelphia. So it's a very weird feeling to be like, oh, let's just get one of these good quarterbacks out of here so we can, roll with Carson or whoever it may be. But to stick on Carson, let me ask you a quick question. Is there a realistic way or a realistic possibility that Carson Wentz is not on this team next year?
Yes, there is a possibility. Now, realistic, I'll answer that in a week or two when I know who the coach is and I get a sense of that. But if I had to guess, Carson Wentz is on the team next year. But sure, I mean, look, when you play as poorly as he did last year and the coach gets fired and, there are the type of concerns around Carson, like the legitimate concerns that there are, then I can't say definitively he's going to be the quarterback, right? These reports about the fractured relationship, about wanting to be traded, that didn't come out of nowhere, right? Like those weren't manufactured. That was a sentiment shared with reporters who are reporting that. So I think that there's a lot that must be mended with Carson if he's your guy. That being said, when you hire a new coach and you have a new offensive system, there can be a sense of renewal when you do that.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. So let me ask you one last question, and then we'll get you off here. I know you got some things to do.
No worries. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad. I'm glad. This is something that's been bugging me, and this is a personal, I want to know. So it is what it is. Brandon, leave me alone. Um, why the silence from Carson Wentz? Why hasn't Carson Wentz come out and said anything? I feel like a lot of people, not maybe testing his character, but these are reports that I feel as a franchise player, you should come out and say something. Why has he been so silent, in your opinion, at least?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one. I mean, as a reporter who covers this team every day, who's covered Carson since 2016 here, you want to hear his voice, right? Like I think it benefits him to speak up, to represent himself. And there's that there's the expression, right? Silence is compliance. If there are reports out about you and they're untrue, come stand up and say it. Say I want to be traded. Say, I don't have an issue with Doug Peterson. And I know you don't want to set the precedent of every time a report's out there, you have to knock it down. But there's a lot of smoke here right now. And if you're not talking in the absence of your voice, these are the voices that are going to be heard. So why isn't he speaking? Perhaps people around him are suggesting that he needs to be quiet, or perhaps what's out there is the truth, is what he wants to be out there, and he doesn't want to put his name directly on it. But he, like I said, the silence is compliance component of it. I don't know the answer. We're not in the locker room this year, so in a different year, you can bump into Carson, you can try to get a sense from him. I haven't seen Carson in person in a while, so it's hard for me to say that. But yeah, I'm with you. I want to hear Carson Wentz, and I think that Carson has had situations come up in the past 5 years that he hasn't been reflected well in a story or in a report, or there's something he wanted to get out there, and he stood up and he's answered those questions and he's addressed it head on. And he could do the same here. He's elected not to. That's his prerogative.
Yeah, I think that him basically not wanting to talk to media that last game really said a lot to me, to be honest. And now this whole silence over the, beginning of the off season, whatever you want to call it. Our off season, I feel like started week 8. It was a bad season. Yeah. But are there any feelings on head coach? Do you think we'll get an announcement today? Do you think we're close? Do you think we're far?
There's a lot of buzz right now about Josh McDaniels. So if Josh McDaniels is in fact the guy, I can't see this stretching too deep into the week. If we get to Thursday and there is not an announcement by then it makes you think that they're either interested in someone still coaching, or they're interested, or they've kind of reset their search a bit, or they're trying for someone else. But look, if there's a coach who's been out of the playoffs right now, and you've already spoken to him, I understand you want to do a lot of background research, talk to a lot of people around the league, but you don't want to let this. If the coach is available to be hired, it behooves you to do it sooner than later, because you need to build a staff. Now, if it's a coach who's still coaching, you obviously need to wait. So I'm very curious that the timeline. I'm not in position to say they should hire Coach X or Coach Y, because something I feel very strongly about is that you're not hiring a resume, you're not hiring a system, you're hiring a person, right? And like you and I, the three of us can get on here and talk about a coach's system and say we like what this coach did with this quarterback, or this guy seems like a leader. The only way you know that and really know their vision is by sitting in the room with them, is by talking to people who know them, talking to people who played with them, talking to people who've with them. And so it would be hypocritical. It would be hypocritical of me to have that position and then come here and say, well, you should hire this guy. Like there are people on that list that I've interacted with, that I've covered, that I've interacted with, whether it's Stu Story, whether it's Todd Bowles. Both of them are very good leaders. I've heard very good things about kind of Joe Brady as an offensive mind. You wonder how young he is. I look at Josh McDaniels, his history, like we said, and you see a lot of good things from an offensive perspective. I mean, if they can get Lincoln Riley to take this job, which I'm skeptical about, but that would kind of be the home run hire, I think, from their perspective. And you never know if there's someone else lingering here, or if they reset it all. But I think the only way you know that vision is by sitting down with them, really getting their ideas. So I don't have a person for you, but I think I would, if it's not done by Thursday, there's something else going on here.
Right. And I don't know. I would think that Carson maybe has some kind of say, and maybe not say, but he's involved in this process. I would assume, because like you said earlier, there's not a lot of veterans on this team anymore. Like with that veteran, like a Malcolm Jenkins, like we had in the past. Like we're down to just a few guys. So I'm assuming like there has to be some kind of conversations with some of these veteran type players when it comes to this.
I don't know if Carson has a say in it, but I certainly think that that Carson's presence is involved. Like fixing Carson, what's the plan with Carson? I think that's definitely a relevant discussion point.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and just quickly, I guess the Eagles are offensive coordinator. I keep on going black. The offensive coordinator from the Colts, and everybody's in here saying we should interview their head coach. So that that's another name now. So
who's that? Nick Sirianni, the offense coordinator from the Colts.
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay,
sir.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard them connected to him, but that's an interesting name.
Yeah, it's only going to get more interesting, man. It's definitely only going to get more interesting. But hey, man, we appreciate you coming on here so much.
Thank you.
You are more welcome on the show anytime. And you're with The Athletic now, correct?
Yes, yeah. Check all my work out on theathletic.com, or if you Google Zach Berman, The Athletic, a story will come up, and you can click on that and subscribe on that link there. So please check that out. I work with Bo Wolf and Chil Kapadia there, and we have Eagles covered from every angle.
Awesome.
Definitely, man. Yeah, we're already big fans. You already know, so we appreciate it so much, man. But I appreciate everybody that's in the chat that was, giving their feedback. Joey Shakes in here. Be more careful. I see everybody. Love you guys. Thank you for coming through. I know that.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
A good one, man. Oh, I think I'm frozen. I know that it was early. I appreciate everybody coming through, taking time, just chilling with us. And, if you want to keep us, going, I'm going to be on live later on with Steve Hayter from Gate City Sports Talk. So come good time. I keep on blacking out. So we're going to get out of here. I love you all, man. Have a great one and enjoy the peace.
Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.